White people have benefited from hundreds of years of racism and racist systems in the U.S. that have systematically disempowered minorities, specifically African Americans, and empowered whites. From the 1830 Indian Removal Act that forcibly relocated Native Americans to the benefit of whites, to the 1862 Homestead Act that gave away millions of acres of land for free to the benefit of whites, and also gave a government handout training program. If you didn't know how to farm those acres of land, they train you on how to farm that land to the benefit of whites. We don't even have to talk, about slavery being, someone calculated it in today's money, being a $1 trillion+ boon to the economy, built on free labor on the backs of African Americans. From Jim Crow laws that obviously benefited whites, to redlining where minorities were excluded from home loans, to post-World War II subsidies where blacks were excluded from federal-backed loans. And everyone knows the best way in America to accrue wealth,
is a home loan.
to build a safety net, is a home loan, is home ownership.
Yeah.
So we go on and on and on. All of these things have benefited, white people have benefited from generations of accrued wealth, access, and privilege that we as white people neither acknowledge nor denounce. Kind of live in this shroud of the American dream that that we get to kind of hide behind and don't acknowledge. The Pew Research Center estimates that white households are worth roughly 20 times as much as black households, and that whereas only 15% of whites have a zero or negative wealth, more than a third of blacks do. And you said this earlier, you can see it most predominantly that in the black family in America is working without a safety net. So when financial calamity strikes, a medical emergency, a divorce, job loss, the fall is presented. There's no safety net at all.
Absolutely.
Why are people that have bought into colorblindness in post-racial America and are the biggest recipients of white privilege and all of these practices and systems that have benefited whites, why are those people still having a hard time with the data that says you've benefited from this? Why are we still having this conversation?
I think it could be a little bit of one, ignorance is bliss, right? But I also feel like nobody wants to feel like they didn't work hard for what they have. I think everybody wants to believe the whole concept, and I think we just look at biblical, like a biblical truth. And I believe this, and I think my brother does a good job of communicating this, is like community is everything. And you get what you have because of people who've created opportunities for you. And I'm talking about in a good sense, right? Like even if you've done everything the right way, right? Even Outliers is a wonderful book, and I love how he breaks down how Bill Gates got to his particular kind of catalyzed his success. And everybody would say, look, he's a self-made. Like, there were a lot of things that lined up perfectly for him to get to where he was. Whether it be the one of the only computers that was accessible was in his particular county or school district, to being in the particular area he lived in at the time of this, like the kind of like a technology boom. To the university he went to so anyway, people who worked, family members who worked in that area, all that to say that nobody pulled themselves up by their own bootstrap. If we even talk about Trump, and it's become like a running joke how he said, my father gave me a small loan of $1 million, but he talks about he's a self-made man. Well,
you're $1 million man.
Like that, just even in that, like it's almost like, do you hear yourself? Like, do you hear what you're saying? Because everybody wants to think that they themselves, and I think that's the sin nature within ourselves, is that we want to be isolated and removed from any kind of, like, we want to be autonomous from the supremacy of God. Like, God had nothing to do with this, community had nothing to do with this, like his sovereignty had nothing to do with this. I did this myself. And so when we talk about privilege, nobody wants to say, like, nobody wants to acknowledge, like, the reason why you have this opportunity at Harvard, or the reason why you have this great opportunity is because of, one, like the systems have been placed for you to succeed and others to not succeed.